Is that credits? Did we do it? Come on. There they are. There's those beautiful credits. We did it. Alright, first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 118 games this year. And 440 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now obsolete. We've now beaten 119 games in 2023 and 441 since we started doing this. Which means I have now broken? I've now broken my single year record of 118 games. That was last year we set that record. Now we made it to 119. Let's go. Alright, yeah, I have some thoughts on this game. I don't know exactly what they are yet, but I'll get it out. What is that noise? Let's start with the positive. This is a cool open world. It is a, it's got, I don't know exactly how I feel about this game. Let me think for a moment. What are the good things about this game? It looks great. The story is cool. The characters are interesting. It's well written. It's well voiced. It's well designed. It's well illustrated, animated. All of that stuff is on point. It doesn't quite look as good as the Avatar movies, but the fact that it's even in the ballpark says something about the state of video games graphics these days, right? So that is one thing. The combat is pretty decent. It's not perfect, but it's decent. It's definitely more than passable. It's got a lot. There's a lot of variation. There's a lot of variety. A lot that I didn't even take advantage of. So I thought that was good. I thought that was in the plus department. I think that's about it. I think those are the main things that are good. Overall, this game is good, but I don't think it's great. And here's why. The Ubisoft open world formula, which is, pretty popular, I think, for a reason. I think that formula works. It's not really at its best here. It's like they're trying to not lean into it too hard. And I understand that decision because they get a lot of criticism for having a lot of their games be, like every one of their open world games, be this certain formula where you can open up new parts of the map and you can raid bases and take over parts of the map and restore the ordered, or what restore your control over the certain areas and find places that you can loot and find things that you can interact with that'll give you skills and yada yada. And it has all that. It has all of that in places. But the emphasis has been taken off of it, which I think felt like it was probably a deliberate choice. It's not. It doesn't really lean too hard into, hey, you need to go to this raider camp and take everything out that often. You have to do it a few times over the course of the campaign, but they make a big deal out of that in games like The Division, right? Where it's like, you need to go here. Here they are on the map. Take these out. It's very obvious why it's a benefit to you because you get all this loot when you do it. When you take down a base in this game, you might find one chest that might have something valuable in it. So the emphasis has been taken off of the looting part and the map conquering, and has been placed more on just exploring, which in theory sounds like a good idea, but for me personally, I like the looting. I like the clearing notifications feeling I get when I'm going from point to point on the map, clearing everything. And I like getting 6 boxes of loot in a single spot like I do in something like The Division, which is one of my favorite games of all time, by the way. I like that. I want more of that. I feel like we don't have enough of that in games. Lately, there aren't really a lot of games like that. So, because they get a lot of shit for that, and they're pulling back. And so this game is a good example of how they've kind of pulled back from that formula. But the problem is that if you're going to do that, you got to replace it with something. Like, give me another reason to explore. Don't just say, oh, it's a beautiful world, and, you'll occasionally find stuff out there that's worth equipping or using or whatever. That's not good enough for me. I don't know what you would replace it with, honestly. I think people that are griping about that probably should shut up and just play something else if they don't like that, because there are people that like those kinds of games. There are plenty of other games, Don't take my loot shooters away from me. And that brings me to my other, and probably my biggest issue. This is a loot game. It's got gear, it's got rarity-based loot, it's got colored loot, it's got all the things. It just doesn't have very much of it. And it's a problem I've run into so many times this year, that games are just, they'll put loot in the game, but they don't put that much. Because they don't want it to be like, oh, it's just another loot grind game. Well, I like those games. And I have had a hard time this year finding any good ones. I want something like The Division 2. I want something like Borderlands 2 or 3. Or Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Those are those games where when you kill a single enemy, he drops an item. When you kill an enemy, he drops an item. When you kill a boss, he drops 3 or 4. Items that you can use. Like, if they had enemies in this game, that if they drop a gun, or they drop a piece of gear, like a chest, like a vest or something, I would have been a lot more interested. But I recognize that not everybody feels that way, and so, that's fine, but, like, this is the kind of game that you would put that in. And so, but you kill enemies in this game, you might get ammo off of them. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to get gear off of enemies. You raid these giant bases with 30 enemies in them, with this huge area that you have to clear. You might get a chest. When I raided one of those spots in The Division, there would be a room that had 6 chests in it. And I'd get 2 pieces of gear at least, probably, that were worth something, that I could use. This game just wants me to play The Division again, But, and I recognize that not every game is supposed to be like that, but this game has that stuff. It's got rarity-based loot, it's got, like, where's the gear? I want more gear. I want gear to drop off of enemies. I want gear to drop off of bosses, of course. I want gear to be more plentiful in the world. If I take down an area, I want to guarantee that there's going to be some chest in there. Maybe not a guarantee I'm going to use it, but like something like Diablo, like where you kill that boss, he's going to drop something good. It doesn't have to be a legendary. Just give me 2 items. I killed the final boss in this game. Guess what he dropped? Fuck all. Nothing. 0. It just, is it that kind of game or isn't it? Because if it's not, fine. But don't put rarity-based colored loot in your game if it's not going to drop off of enemies or bosses. What's my incentive? Just to enjoy the story? Well, I'm sorry, that's not enough for me. I'm just not that kind of gamer. That's my main problem, but this is really a critique on 2023 in games. 2023 has been the best year in video games, period. So don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on 2023 as a gaming year, but it's not perfect. I think that the media and gamers have just been shitting on live service games and loot games like Diablo and stuff for long enough now that developers are like, fine, we just won't make those anymore. Or if we make something that looks like it, we're going to take the emphasis off of it because we know you're going to shit on it. And they're right. They're right. This is not a developer fault. It's gamers that are just like, I don't like that kind of game, so they shouldn't exist. Well, guess what? Sometimes people do like those games. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but that I didn't like that. It made it hard it made the game feel like a chore. If I feel like I'm getting a reward at the end of a mission, a good something, then I want to do the missions. I want to do the side missions even. But if I get a mission and then it's just like, good job, go on to the next mission, that's not gratifying. Not to me. It's like, oh, you get a 30-second cutscene, you get more story. That's not good enough for me. I need more than that. I mean, it's good enough for me to finish the game. Obviously, I finished it, but it's not good enough for me to feel like I loved the game. Right? I didn't feel like I loved this game. But it was okay. It was alright. And I think, honestly, I think that there is a problem with gamers in general, and well, really with people in general, that what they want and what they think they want is two different things. I think that most people do want the things that I want. At least I'm honest about it. At least I understand that about myself. I think gamers do want those things because they make games like this that take the emphasis off of it. And what do they get for it? Middling reviews. What's wrong with this game? I know what's wrong with it. I just talked about all the things that are wrong with it. But you get some other gamer that's been in some comment section somewhere else saying like, oh, there should be less games like this. They aren't going to be able to articulate what's wrong with this game because it's the thing that they think they don't want. That's just a theory of mine. Whatever. I just wish there were more games like Borderlands or The Division or Diablo, where it's like, look, man, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, but like, I want a loot grind. If you're going to make a game like this with like 8 pieces of gear, 9, 10, 12 pieces of gear I can equip, and you're going to make them colored and loot and call them epic and all that shit, like, can you give me some loot then? Can I have some actual loot when I complete missions and when I kill enemies and at least bosses? For fuck's sake. And also, another little light complaint about this game. There weren't that many bosses, and the ones that they were just weren't that good. The enemies were real spongy. Really, really, really spongy. You just have to put hundreds of bullets into enemies to kill them, and that got old pretty fast. But anyway, it was okay. It was alright. I don't know where I'm going to rank this, but, there are games that don't there are games that don't have that loot grind that are some of my favorite games of all time. Horizon Zero Dawn doesn't have a major emphasis on loot grind. Ghost of Tsushima. These are big open world games that have some of that formula stuff where you're taking down bases and you're doing all those things, clearing the map, but there's not really like a lot of loot. Horizon has a little bit, I guess, but there's not a big emphasis on it. Ghost of Tsushima has a little bit, but the emphasis is not on that. So I'm not saying you can't have a game like this, but like those games have like way better stories than this. They have way better graphics. They have way better combat. Well, maybe not way better graphics. This game's graphics are pretty good, but they're better games. They're better games. So if you're going to make a game like this, and you're going to put loot in it, and then you're not going to put an emphasis on it, you better fucking find something else to put the emphasis on. Because the story is just not good enough to do it. Not for me. The story was okay. Alright, I'll shut up. I've been ranting for a while now, but, alright, that's it. Can we be done? Let's be done with this game. I'm ready. I've been ready. This game has actually been fairly frustrating me. On and off. But it's not... Some of it's my fault. Because I'm rushing through it, and then I get under levels, and I've been running into that a lot lately. I feel like a long time I wasn't running into that. Alright, so we're done. Completed Last Strike. Completed the main campaign. Good, done. I'm not interested in seeing anything else. Last order of business. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. It's been fun. But we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Oh shit. Bye! See ya!